Hey hippies, welcome back. It's your girl Courtney Shavante here, and I am back with another Boujie Hippie tutorial. Today we are doing a tutorial for this luxury chest set. It is absolutely beautiful, but before we get started, you do know the drill. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for me and also hit that notification bell so that way you don't miss anything that I do put out for you guys moving forward, okay? Alright, so to get started, you're just going to go ahead and, unwrap your mold and whatnot. Mine did come a bit bent up, so that was slightly annoying because it did put a crease in my mold, but I went ahead and cast it over it because the crease began to sit, and I just needed to go ahead and add these decorations in and everything. So what you see me doing is I'm using a paintbrush and I am just dusting on this holographic pink color that I have. It is absolutely beautiful. I love how it looks. Like, you see me using a couple of videos now and I'm really obsessed with it. So yes, holo pink is the way to go. I'm definitely looking for a big tube of it. So yeah, if you know any, definitely keep me in the know. So yeah, I just go ahead and alternate every other square, putting that pink holo and making sure that I do have it infilled nicely exactly how I want it. And then I'm also going to go ahead and dust the chest pieces as well, so that way we can go ahead and get those going and do it all in one setting instead of keep bringing out this powder. Alright, so after that you just want to go ahead and clean up right quick. So take some alcohol and use a piece of tissue or a damp rag, something like that, and then just make sure you get any excess up from those squares that should not have the holo powder in it. So you may need to get a Q-tip as well, just so that way you're able to make more tiny adjustments and everything. Make sure you really didn't leave any streaks and get any little stray pieces. I zoomed in for you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about regarding that part. And I'm just making sure I go along the edges so I can get it exactly how I want it. I am a bit of a perfectionist, but art isn't perfect. But like I said before, I'm going to try as hard as I can to get as close as I can to that. So yeah, just go ahead, keep going through. This does take a little while. It took me maybe about 2 hours to complete that. But from here, you're just going to go ahead and pour resin into the chest piece mold. You do want to be very, very careful though, because you do not want to overfill these. If you overfill it, it'll be hard to stick them together later. So if you do accidentally get a little bit too much resin into one, you can grab a little plastic pipette and then just kind of suck a little bit of that resin out, so that way it doesn't overflow. But yeah, just make sure you get each one filled and make sure that you aren't leaving any spaces. Everything's nice and flush, especially with those king pieces near the top. Alright, so we will be letting that cure. It takes about 48 hours. Now I did go ahead and mix up some more resin so that way I can add on like my flowers and my foils. So basically what you see me doing is I'm just adding a few dabs of resin into each of those blank spaces that do not have those that holo pigment. And then what I'm doing in each okay, so let me try to explain this correctly. So every other diagonal clear line is going to have these flowers lined inside. So that's what I'm working on first, because the flowers are usually the hardest to remove the bubbles out and everything. That's usually the most tedious part. From there, and the ones that are left over, so every other diagonal space from there, if you will, I'm just adding in some gold foil into each square, and that's going to create this beautiful, like, just floral luxe garden thing that we got going on here. That's really my thing. I love gold, I love diamonds, I love flowers, I like glitter. So you are going to get all of that plus more when you are over here, and crystals, because I'm all about healing as well. So make sure you do check out CourtneyShavante.com. On CourtneyShavante.com, That's the home of Boujie Hippie. So I do have my store on there, but Boujie Hippie is a whole lot bigger than, like, you know, my resin pieces and everything. I also have CBD soaps. I have CBD oils, lotions, and a whole bunch of other things are going to be dropping as well. I have home decor. I also have some different apparel and merch as well. So make sure you definitely check out that link, CourtneyShavante.com. And everything is really focused around healing the feminine and just making us our best selves, so that way we can go out and, you know, just really out here taking over the world, girl, because that's what it's all about, okay? Alright, so yeah, I'm just going ahead making sure I got the foil and everything flush, and I tried to make sure that each square is completely filled. If it does go over into the pink hollow, it's okay, like, you know, things do happen, but just do your best to try to make sure it does not. Then we're just going to allow this to cure for some time after we got everything how we want it. Alright, so after the 48 hours have passed for both pieces, I went ahead and I was able to wiggle these pieces from the mold. So from here, like, I'm just kind of pulling each one out. Alright, so after we did get those removed from the mold, what we're going to do next is just go ahead and pull off those excess resin drips and everything. So you know how the resin will just kind of come up over the edges sometimes. It does, you know, still cast, of course. So you just want to go ahead and clean that off, so that way when we are ready to put these together later, they will be nice and flush, and they will be able to stick up against each other without a whole bunch of extra pieces sticking out or anything like that. Feel free to grab any tools such as toothpicks or pliers, or just whatever you have that's small and skinny laying around that you can just kind of stab in there to pull off those extra clear pieces. Alright, so this is our next step. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and prepare your resin. I'm making some gold flake resin, and I'm also going to mix up some black resin. Now this black resin will have some embellishment in it as well. So it's going to have a very opaque black color, but I also want it to be very glittery as well, so I'll be enhancing that as I go. So the first thing you see me add is that mica powder, and I'm just stirring, making sure that it's mixed thoroughly. From there, I am taking my opaque black alcohol ink, and then I'm just pouring that in there. I did a good little amount, and then I just went ahead and added in some of this pink and some of this black fine glitter, so that will give me the sparkle and everything that I want and that I'm looking for, because I'm not necessarily looking for the pearlescent completely. I really want those sparkle and shimmer pieces in there too, even though it will definitely still have that marble effect. So what you see me doing is I just went ahead and pulled some off to the side, because the rest of that resin will be used to make the base layer. Now soon I'm going to show y'all where I screwed up at. So I'm going to have a very good example of what not to do coming up. But first, we're going to add just those gold flakes to the top parts of the mold pieces, and then you use your stick to just kind of push the resin flakes down, make sure they're in place. And then from here, you can go ahead and add in the black resin into the bottom. Now you may need to use the popsicle stick to push that clear resin back up just a tad, so that way you can make sure that you know, you get the effect that you want, because we want the gold flakes more so concentrated at the top of the chest piece for this. Alright, so this is where I messed up at. So I noticed my resin was flash curing and I was not about to lose 400 milliliters of resin. So what I did was I ran over here to the table and I just dumped it into the mold, and then I am using this stir stick to spread it out the best I can. Now I'm not gonna lie, this is going to have like a lot of chunks in it and everything, and we're gonna have to do a lot of work to get it smooth, but it will definitely be able to be done. So what you see me doing here is just adding in you know, more resin and stuff, and just trying to fill in those little holes and whatnot, so I can make sure that there aren't too many bubbles towards the front of this casting. So if you are going to be doing this and following this method as I am doing it, pour into the big mold first and then go worry about the chest pieces, because the chest pieces, like, they only take like what, maybe 20 milliliters altogether. So yeah, gonna go ahead and let that cure, and as it cures, what we're going to do is, well, after it cures, I'm sorry, I took my sanding block and I just started like sanding, but it wasn't like, the ridges were so big that wasn't going fast enough for me. So what I did was I went ahead and took my little hand drill and I put on that sanding edge, and I just went to town on all those mounds and everything, and making sure that I just kind of go over it as much as I can, to try to get it as low as I can without actually going through and like making dents. So I hope that makes sense. You really just want to kind of aim for the mountain tops of these mounds. Yeah, girl, there are so many on here. Like, I had to like really switch the bit out and everything just so that way I could continue smoothing it out. And I'm not gonna lie, I did get a little lazy, and since I'm keeping this chess set for myself because me and my son play, he's actually amazing at it. But yeah, we're going to be using this for home use, so I actually didn't sand it down the way I would if I was making this for a customer and I made this mistake or something like that. So definitely don't be afraid to get in there. Also do this outside so you have ventilation, and then just blow that extra dust away and wipe that off. Get as clean as you can, and then come in here and spray with some alcohol. Get that damp rag, and you're just going to wipe and get as much off as you can. Alright, after I do that, I just went ahead and whipped up some more resin, and I'm just pouring a clear layer over the back, and I'm trying to make sure that I get it to a nice even layer. So I will have to actually make a little bit more than what I made and pour that in here as well. Luckily, this mold is, you know, it takes a lot of resin already, and I already, you know, kind of prepared to do a top clear coat. So I guess that's working out in my favor versus this being such a smaller mold. But yeah, so here you just see me making more of the resin, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and get that added in and everything so I can try to get this as flush as possible. It definitely helps if you're working on an even surface as well. This table, I realized during this project, actually is just slightly off. So if you can get a leveler or maybe even a leveling board, that would definitely help out tons. So that way, you know, you can make sure everything's how you need it. Use that heat gun to thin the resin and push it around, because again, like, we really want to make sure that we get this as even as possible after that little oopsie daisy. Alright, so I know you guys seen me do this with the last one, I'm sorry, the last set. So we're basically doing the same thing here, and we're just going to go ahead and demold these pieces, and then we're going to make sure that they are nice and clean and all that good stuff. So just pull each one out like so. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and stick our pieces together using some UV resin and some rubber bands. I use rubber bands because the resin does not stick to rubber bands, so it's very easy to like get them into place and then keep them into place. So you just want to add a little bit of the UV resin to one side and then click the other corresponding side together, and then just open your rubber band and then wrap the rubber band around the piece like so. So only wrap maybe about 3 times or so, because these rubber bands, especially the small black ones, they can get really tight on there, and you don't want them like, you know, overly tight. It's not really necessary. Now when you are placing this UV resin, just make sure that, you know, you're being careful to not put too much, because if you don't want it to seep out too much. So like, yeah, just be mindful of that, because you don't want bumps all around the edge because the UV resin started coming out. Alright, so this is how they look now that I've gotten them all, like, you know, rubber band and everything. And then from here, I'm just going to place under my black light. I did this step for maybe 3 minutes in total, I want to say. And from there, like, you know, it was like mostly good, but I like to make sure that everything is good. So I repeated for the other set of the chest pieces, and then from there I just let it sit in the sunlight for a bit to really harden. Alright, so after all that is done, what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and wiggle your tray from the mold, and also pull each of these rubber bands off each of your chest pieces. So just pull. My son came in to help because like my nails like they do everything else, they're making this so hard. So I had to go get this little weeding tool, and then from there I was able to keep up with them, actually get these rubber bands off. So a weeding tool will definitely help with this if you need to pull those off. And definitely save the rubber bands if you can, so that way you have them for any other pieces that, you know, you do decide to do. So I'm pushing all the rubber bands off to the side, and then I'm just kind of inspecting the different pieces. As you can see, my son's like just kind of over here lining them up. Now these black and gold flake pieces, they were a bit sticky, so what I'm doing is I'm just placing them in the rag, and I'm spraying them down with the alcohol, and I'm rubbing really well all across them to make sure I pull off any excess of that sticky residue, and that will definitely help, and you'll be able to get it dry, so you'll be good after that. Alright, so what you want to do next is you want to just go ahead and get your needle tip bottle, fill it with your gold acrylic paint. If you are using gold, if you're using another color, that's fine, whatever, just make sure it's acrylic. So put it inside the needlepoint bottle, and then from there you're able to just kind of place the paint into the lines a whole lot easier. And since this casting has all these air holes in it due to my resin like flash curing and everything and rushing through the process, I do have some air bubbles on the surface of my casting. So I just want to make sure that, you know, I don't get gold paint specks everywhere, especially through like where that hollow is and whatnot, because I don't want the gold there, and it would really bother me. So that's the reason why I'm using the needle tip bottle. But if you didn't have the flash curing issue and you don't have all these air bubbles, then you can take a simple paintbrush and then just kind of go over the lines, and then of course like you'll do the same steps and wipe the excess. You'll just have a little bit more excess, but that's completely fine. It'll wipe off just fine. So yeah, make sure that you don't leave any holes, and you may need to go back over in some parts when the paint sinks in to get all the holes. Let that dry completely, and then from there I want you to get your damp rag and spray that with some alcohol, and then you're just going to wipe away that excess paint like I was saying earlier. So yeah, just wipe. You may need to use some elbow grease because this hollow does kind of grab the paint a bit. So yeah, definitely get in there and scrub some, and it helps if you're using a rag that has some abrasiveness to it. I wouldn't recommend a microfiber rag for this situation, if you will. Yeah, so just go ahead and go between those lines, get them nice and flush, and make sure they're as pretty as you want them, and you get off any extra. From here, I'm just going to turn the board over and sand away any sharp edges that did form while everything was casting. As you can see, I did go in there with another layer of resin, but I didn't do a full layer because, like I said, this is me and my son's board at this point, and I didn't care anymore to keep with all that work. But what I did do to make it a whole lot easier for us when we're playing, I did get these little rubber bumpers that I'm just going to apply to the corner of to each corner of this chessboard, and then that will make sure that when we're playing, everything is level and there's not all this slipping and sliding and everything. So even the board itself isn't completely level, this will make it. Alright, here is our beautiful baby here. So I am absolutely in love with how this set turned out. I love how this pink holo just radiates and everything, and all those rainbows that just pop out on top of that pink. I love how the flowers and the golds alternate on those diagonal lines. I just think it's so absolutely gorgeous. I love how the gold really complements everything as well in those gold lines. I like how the pieces turned out and everything, and I just really think anyone would be absolutely so lucky to play with this set. I hope you guys did really enjoy this tutorial and everything. If you have any questions, comments, feedback is a gift and I treasure it. Make sure you do leave it down below for me. Check out my Etsy store and also check out CourtneyShavante.com to support me. And again, thank you guys so much for your support. Until next time, hippies, I'll see ya.